Hello and welcome back to Pick My Solar's Facebook Live. I am here with oh no, that is Gordon here today. Gordon is joining us. Gordon, say hello to
Hi
the
everyone.
people.
My name is Gordon Algermis. I'm the Business Development Manager at Pick My Solar.
Well, welcome back. I believe this is his second appearance on Facebook
Yes.
Live. Happy to have him. We have a fun topic for you today. We are going to be doing a solar tweet storm. Deep dive number 72. This should be a fun one. We get a lot of these. You see a lot of these if you just do hashtag solar scam. I'm sure you're going to see some fun ones out there. But we're going to dive into it, have some fun, maybe offer some rebuttals along the way. But as always, ask us anything, write us comments. As you can see, we are not too picky about how you choose to express yourself on our social media platform. We will answer and address just about any of it. So let's get into it. First one. M.E. Broyles. LOL, another liberal scam, just like wind turbines and solar panels. Not sure what she was originally referring to. But Gordon, you want to touch on the liberal scam that is wind turbines and solar panels?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to get too into the conspiracy theory around liberal scams, but it's sort of unclear, what is the scam itself that she's referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we know that both wind turbines and solar panels generate power, and it's a pretty simple calculus when you look at cost of the power generating asset,
Right.
cost of kilowatt hours of the lifetime of the equipment, and we know it's cheaper than utility rates.
Yeah.
What's the scam there?
Yeah, I would say maybe on the wind turbine side, the fact that it's not really a residential application,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe some people just don't believe that the wind turbine actually produces power.
That
Those
is a
people
possibility.
exist. Those
yeah,
people do exist.
that is a possibility.
Not quite a scam, though. Nice try, M.E. Broyles. What's next? Oops. The solar panels are fake. I think I skipped that one. That was a quick one, though. Hit the button a little quick.
They are in fact real.
Yeah. We see one. We got one in the office. We'll bring it. You know what? I forget that guy's name, but next time, we'll bring in a solar panel, put it right here, show you that it's a real thing. This one might actually have been replying to our first one. Kind of an advocate here for the scam. So, Mark Flynn, correct. The whole thing is a scam. All of it. Without the government subsidies, there's no business case to install solar panels. Now 1 in 5 houses have them. This means the remaining householders carry the burden of grid connection costs.
Yeah, this is a common misconception.
Yeah. This one's a little more grounded in realism than some of the other ones we've seen.
But people seem to think that solar panels are only viable with subsidies. But we now know there are more than a dozen states across the country where solar is at grid parity with utility cost of power with no subsidies whatsoever. And based on forecasting trends, we expect another dozen or so states to be at grid parity with zero subsidies in the next decade or so.
Yeah. And then I think that another important thing to mention here, one, I don't think 1 in 5 houses have them. I don't think we've reached
Oh, not even close.
Yeah.
I think
1 or 2%, right?
Yeah, I mean California is the highest penetration, and there may be 5 to 7%.
Right.
So nowhere near 20%. Certainly not across the country.
Yeah.
For the whole country average, it's probably around 1%, maybe even less.
Yeah, and so even if that were true, bearing the burden of grid interconnection costs, when you go solar, you don't stop paying for those grid connection costs. You're still going to rely on the grid. In some cases, obviously, when the sun goes down, you have to use net metering, which we've gone into in previous ones. You do still pay your utility in some capacity, and that is to support the infrastructure. So solar customers do support the infrastructure. And another point on subsidies, I don't like that argument. The subsidies are there. So the finances make sense, but to your point, you don't necessarily need them in some markets.
Well, and it also avoids the larger question of we spend billions and tens of billions of dollars every year on fossil fuel industry subsidies.
Right.
And so even solar with no subsidies, it's still cheaper. The subsidy argument doesn't hold much weight.
Hear that, Mark? Better look next time. On to the next one here. That was actually one of the more grounded ones, though.
Yeah, sure.
We've seen. When you look at this one, you get a little perspective to where Mark's coming from. Is he saying chemistry or is PSH chemistry a
I
type
think
of
it's
chemistry? Okay,
chemistry.
chemistry was a scam built in the 1800s as a conspiracy to sell solar panels, and everyone knows that. Gotta think he's trolling. He or she
I
is
think
trolling.
he's got to be trolling.
I'm not going to read it aloud, but the handle would suggest that this person is a clown on this website. Yeah, and when were the first solar panels built?
Well,
can't
there
imagine.
were early solar cells, very rudimentary type cells in the early 20th century, but not really commercialized until the mid century in the 60s with major advances, Bell Labs.
So you would think a scam that started in the 1800s is likely a misconception.
Well, if it was a scam started in the 1800s, it has not done very well. Took a while for that scam to get off the
Yeah,
ground.
I guess the people that were leading the charge didn't quite see that one come to fruition. But yeah, that was a tough one. Chemistry works. Yeah, there's not a lot of moving parts, just electrons moving around. Again, tough to really put the context of this one without knowing what they're talking about, but 50% renewable, probably an RPS standard, would be my guess, probably a goal to get there. How much, how much is our power bills going to go up to subsidize? I'm going to assume they meant wind and solar. What a scam, paying Chinese to build crappy solar panels that last 20 years and won't pay them off. Great plan. And not sure who that is, probably shouting out the governor there. Yeah, I think Stephen's a little off here. You don't necessarily pay the Chinese to do this. Not that that's a problem. Those are Stephen words, not mine. Yeah, I don't know if you want to touch on this one a little bit.
Yeah, this is another common concern that adding more renewables is going to substantially increase the cost of power. And the reality is, with new technologies that are being deployed, and certainly in a state like Nevada, we have really solid evidence that solar plus a whole battery storage, utility scale battery storage network is going to be cheaper than building any new power generation assets, like a new coal plant, a new nuclear plant. We know that the cost is going to be cheaper now, especially in a state as sunny as Nevada, to build solar plus storage. The reality is that the economic case has shifted over the last 5 years. And this is just not true.
Yeah, and I'll give Stephen a tiny bit of credit here because there was a big fight in Nevada over their net metering policy, and
Absolutely.
the big proponent was some of these utilities saying all of these solar folks are basically taking money away from us, and we need their money, so we're going to charge them a ridiculous amount to be on the grid because we need to have that infrastructure in place. They were charging solar customers, or the proposal was 5 to 10 times that of non-solar customers to be connected to the grid. It wasn't even an equitable thing. So there was very likely a lot of information around this and misinformation rather surrounding these the incentives the net metering policy in Nevada. So I'm not going to give them a lot of credit, but a little credit. He might have been duped by the media or the.
Absolutely. There's a lot of very powerful interests at play in the energy world, and a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this one, good Lord, don't even know where to start here. John said, "Yep, climate change so people can be conned into useless solar panels, making some rich on the scam while making everyone else poor." So, yeah, this one, I'm not really going to try to peel back too many layers, but I don't know how solar is going to make other people poor, maybe even making a massive jump from the cost that he would incur.
I'm guessing he's suggesting that power prices are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
With solar, we know that not to be the case. And it's interesting when you see these comments and they don't actually think about the vast amount of wealth and power generated by fossil fuel extraction, refining companies, and that's where the money is.
Yeah.
That's where the powerful interests are. And so, when these conspiracy-minded people suggest that it's really the solar industry that's pulling the strings. I can tell you the solar industry would be much different if they were pulling the strings in Congress.
I think so. Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, it's energy. Everybody needs it. It's a commodity that we'll always have at a lot of powerful figures and a lot of money in whoever are the controlling parties. So I think that the more things we can inject to diversify that, the better. That's
Absolutely.
my pitch to the. I don't want to get into the climate change thing. Not today, Gordon. Not today. Not biting on the climate change. This one's actually a good one, I think.
Yeah.
This is worth talking about because I would think the same thing before I learned a little bit. But Med took a picture of her neighbor's solar array covered in snow. Actually covered in snow. No conspiracy on this one. My neighbor's solar panels generating approximately 0 watts, wrong, on a cold and cloudy day last winter. One of about 50 days with no sun and no wind. Renewable, quote, renewable energy is the biggest scam ever. So how do we unwrap that one? So the wind doesn't affect solar panels. I assume that she's going to give her some credit talking about wind turbines. Which, yeah, you need wind for the wind turbines to work. That's why people that build wind turbines, to get the best return on their investment, put them in windy locations. Probably not going to put a wind turbine on your street, Med. But no, solar panels will still produce some energy with snow on top of them. Obviously, it's not going to be as much as if they were clean and clear, but that's part of what we do in our analysis, where we take the environmental conditions into account. So those days where you will be producing less, that's accounted for, and it'll be up to you whether or not you want to add more panels to account for something like that, or whether or not you're getting enough without it. But yeah, some regions are more challenging for solar just due to their environmental conditions than others. Nevada, like you mentioned, not a whole lot of trees, really low profile roofs. You're going to get great production out of your panels. Massachusetts or New York or wherever this project may be, it will be a little tricky, and cloudy days aren't really as bad as people might think either.
Yeah. I'm sure Med's neighbor, when evaluating solar panels for their home, did an analysis, and they knew that they were going to get less production in the winter, as expected. Shorter days, more cloudy days, more snow. But ultimately, they did the economic analysis, and our modeling is incredibly accurate to the point where we guarantee the production.
Right.
And looked at the data and said, hey, this is still a really economic decision. So it doesn't matter. Ultimately, it doesn't matter if your solar is not producing a few days, as long as you're doing a full economic analysis of the annual production, the lifetime production, the total cost of that system.
Totally.
It ultimately doesn't matter.
Alrighty, let's move on to the next one here. Come on, buddy. Yeah, I think in the end though, with something like this, you're locking in a lower rate for energy when you go solar. It's not necessarily, it might not always be 100% offset or the best possible solar production for your region due to your shade factors, but 50% offset in some cases, it can be much better than 100%, well, probably not much better than 100% offset in other cases, but just as valuable for somebody's, bottom line.
Yeah.
Anyway, Brian Swinger with this guy emoji. Anyone out there own Tesla City or SolarSol installed solar panels with a Powerwall? Question. Please DM me. I'm considering it, but at $75,000 with a $23,000 tax credit still seems excessive, even being in the Sunshine State. Then he followed up, looks like 2 weeks later. I ended up not doing solar panels on my home here in the Sunshine State, all caps, as it's at least 10 years before to make up the cost. May need to replace them by then, etc. It turns out might not be worth it, and Solar City is dying in Tesla's worst mistake of a purchase. Avoid. I'm not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. But the part that he did talk about, Sunshine State, Florida, if my state nickname.
Yep, you got
kind
it.
of okay. Okay, it was a few options,
Yeah.
but so one of the challenges with Florida market, which we touched on before, is they have very, very low rates from the utility. Very, very kind of consumer friendly in that respect, and so 10-year payback in Florida for a cash purchase is not abnormal. $73,000 or $75,000. Tough to apply context without knowing the size of a solar system.
Yeah, seems high.
It does seem high.
Really high. It is with energy storage, but 10 years at that expensive rate, honestly,
not so
Could be
good.
pretty good. And,
Yeah.
it depends on if they're financing or not. This guy probably could get day one savings, given the limited amount of context we have here.
Right.
So it sounds like this was not properly, he was
Yeah.
not properly educated on the value.
Yeah, and I think what the big point here is, even if you do have a 10-year payback period, you won't need to replace them by year 10. Tesla SolarCity's warranty, I believe, is 20 years. Panel warranties are going to be 25 years, their performance warranties. So you should be covered should anything need to be replaced. You should be covered at cost, depending on your workmanship or the panel. It might have some labor involved, but you will not need to replace them in 10 years by the time you have your payback. Quite frankly, if you said, hey, this is going to be 25 years to pay back, that's well, yeah, you would need to replace it maybe at that point. We don't know. That one would be less viable. 10 years, go for it. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you got 15 years of next to no power, no cost power.
Yeah. Okay, this one. Do not attempt to distance yourself from CO2.
Oh,
Well, that one's
so bad.
a tough one. I don't even. Do not. I mean, you shouldn't. Like, I think we need some CO2, in the world. Now that the scam is collapsing, can you tell me what carbon footprint, carbon taxes, carbon offsetting means? What is the climate control knob? What emissions are wind turbines and solar panels meant to reduce?
These are all legitimate questions.
That
These
one's
are
not
these
so
are
great.
confusing terms that it totally makes sense to me that someone would be confused as to what does it really mean when you put solar on your roof and you get these, oh, you're saving this many tons of carbon. And what we do at Pick My Solar is we look at the blend of the utility that you're currently drawing power from, look at their power mix. Your utility probably has a blend of maybe coal, natural gas, nuclear, some renewables as well. And there are these databases that compile what is the average emissions per kilowatt hour from that utility. So when you're getting power from solar, obviously there's no emissions from a solar panel.
Right.
And so we can say for every kilowatt hour generated by your solar, you're avoiding a kilowatt hour with associated carbon emissions from your utility. So it's a fairly simple calculation. We know how much your solar panel is going to produce over its lifetime, and so we can extrapolate how much avoided carbon you are not emitting through your utility.
Right. Yeah, that's the best way to explain that one. That one, not a crazy tweet, just some good questions in there.
Yeah.
I think someone, Sylvia,
Not sure about
Sylvia
the
just
first
looking to
sentence.
learn more. Yeah, that one didn't land with me. Oh, Rush Limbaugh. Solar panels are not sustainable, millennials. Hey, he's talking to us. May sound good, yes. Clean, renewable energy does sound good. But what do you do when the sun's down at night? What do you do when the clouds obscure the sun? We're not there yet. Whoa.
Rush is touching on
Yeah.
an important question.
Yeah.
And the reality is that yes, large scale solar deployment will need to figure out a way to store that energy.
Right.
There's no way around that.
Yeah.
Fortunately, there's been huge advances in energy storage technology,
Mhm.
residential batteries that store the energy that you collect during the day when you're not consuming as much power, and you can discharge it at night. Also, our utility wants to buy credits for that power during the day, and they're happy to exchange those credits for power from their utility at night.
Right.
It's a fairly simple calculus, but intuitively, I understand that response. Obviously, yeah, there's no sun at night.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is just kind of playing on something that it makes objective sense.
Mhm.
Like, what do you do when the sun's down? Yeah, you're not going to produce solar panels, solar power, but that's why net metering exists. And like you said, with the advancement in energy storage, grid resiliency, especially here in California, is a huge concern.
Mhm.
And so having that, not only the ability to store that energy, but then to deploy it in multiple different ways, and then the utility compensating you to help out their infrastructure. We aren't there yet, Rush, but we're headed there,
That's the future of energy.
That is where that's what the energy storage is here to do. And I believe Rush has taken us home. Did not think we'd be closing a Facebook Live on Rush Limbaugh, but here we are, deep dive number 72. As always, we are Pick My Solar. If you are looking into solar, looking into storage, we will give you competing solar solutions from top providers in your area. any of these questions that you may have, we'd be more than happy to dive into other ones as well. And yeah, that is it. That is
Until
it
next time.
for this Facebook Live. We will see you next week for Deep Dive number 73.